The hip-hop world is in shock right now, as reports surface that Papoose has been rushed to the hospital after a brutal altercation involving Eazy, the block captain, and sources say Remy Ma is completely devastated. What was supposed to be a private dispute has spiraled into a full-blown tragedy that's left everyone speechless. According to insiders, the situation went from heated words to sudden violence. And by the time help arrived, Papoose was already unconscious. Remy Ma, who's been at the center of drama with Eazy for months, reportedly broke down in tears when she got the call. Witnesses say she raced to the hospital and refused to leave his side, pleading with doctors for updates as they work to stabilize him. Fans have taken over social media, expressing disbelief that things between Eazy and Papoose went this far. For months, the tension between these three has been escalating. From whispers of betrayal to public confrontations that had everyone watching. But no one expected it to turn violent. Now, as Papoose fights to recover, questions are swirling about what really went down that night. Was it revenge, jealousy, or a moment of rage that spun completely out of control? One thing's certain, this isn't just another rap beef. It's a breaking point, one that's testing loyalties, love, and lives. And if Remy Ma's reaction is any sign, this story is about to expose much more than anyone was ready for. The night everything changed started with a phone call Remy Ma never wanted to get. It was close to midnight when her phone began vibrating over and over again. She ignored it at first, thinking it was just another rumor alert or a producer trying to book her for a late interview. But the longer it buzzed, the heavier the pit in her stomach grew. When she finally picked up, the voice on the other end shattered her completely, trembling, barely coherent and drenched in panic. "Remy, it's Papoose. He's been hurt badly." Everything after that became a blur. Within seconds, Remy was out the door. No makeup, no shoes, just fear racing through her veins. She didn't even grab her purse. Neighbors later said they'd never seen her like that before, tears running down her face, keys shaking in her hands, mumbling prayers under her breath. The moment she reached her car, she sped through every red light in the Bronx, ignoring honking drivers and flashing traffic cameras. She didn't care. The only thing that mattered was getting to him. When she arrived at the hospital, chaos was already waiting for her. Police cars lined the entrance, their red and blue lights painting the night in flashes of panic. A crowd had gathered outside with camera phones raised and voices whispering about what had just happened. Inside, nurses rushed through the hallways with gurneys. And Remy could hear someone shouting orders in the ER. "Where is he?" She screamed as she pushed through the front desk, ignoring security. Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. It wasn't until a nurse recognized her and gently told her to wait that she realized her hands were shaking uncontrollably. "He's in surgery," the nurse said softly. "Please, ma'am, you need to stay calm." But how could she? Papoose, her husband, her rock, the man who stood by her through prison time, betrayal rumors, and every industry storm was fighting for his life. And she had no idea why. Within minutes, Remy's phone was blowing up. Fans had already caught wind of the situation. Someone at the venue had gone live during the altercation, and the clip was spreading like wildfire across social media. The video, though shaky, clearly showed two figures arguing near the back of the stage: Eazy, the block captain, and Papoose. Voices were raised, security tried to step in, but then things turned violent. A shove, a punch, and chaos erupted, according to multiple eyewitnesses. The fight started over something said about Remy, something Eazy apparently couldn't let go of. "You don't talk about her like that," one witness claimed to have heard Papoose shout before things got physical. Eazy's team tried to hold him back, but by that time, the damage was already done. One punch sent Papoose to the ground, and the crowd's screams filled the air. Back at the hospital, Remy sat in the waiting area with her face buried in her hands. She couldn't stop shaking. Memories flooded her mind, their wedding day, constant words of encouragement, the way he fought for her when the world turned its back. And now she was terrified she might lose him because of something she never meant to cause. Social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag pray for PAPOOC and hashtag justice for Remy began trending within an hour. Fans demanded answers while others went straight to Eazy's page, filling his comments with rage and accusations. "You went too far," one wrote. "You ruined everything." Others tried to defend him, saying there had to be more to the story. But the public had already chosen sides, and they were with Remy. Meanwhile, sources close to the couple revealed this wasn't the first time tension had sparked between Eazy and Papoose. Behind the scenes, the men had been at odds for months. What started as professional jealousy, two rappers from different eras had grown into something personal. Eazy and Remy's rumored closeness didn't help. Even though she repeatedly denied any romantic involvement, the whispers only got louder. And Papoose couldn't ignore them anymore. That night at the event was supposed to be about music, a small performance to support upcoming talent. But when Papoose showed up unexpectedly, things shifted. People noticed the energy instantly. Eazy looked tense. Remy tried to keep her distance, hoping to prevent exactly what ended up happening. She told them to keep it peaceful, one insider said. She begged them both to be professional, but there was too much pride in the room. The moment someone mentioned her name in the wrong tone, it was over. By the time doctors finally came out to update her, the weight of everything had already broken her down. Her eyeliner was smeared, her voice hoarse from crying. When the surgeon said he's stable, but it was close, she collapsed into the nurse's arms. The words, "it was close," kept echoing in her head like a nightmare. Later that night, reporters swarmed the hospital entrance. Paparazzi snapped photos of Remy leaving the ICU floor wrapped in a hoodie, face hidden. She didn't say a word to the cameras. Inside sources said she spent the rest of the night sitting by Papoose's bedside, holding his hand and whispering apologies. He'd do anything for her, a friend said quietly. And deep down, she knows she played a part in this, even if it wasn't intentional. Meanwhile, Eazy stayed silent. He didn't post. He didn't speak. His team released a short statement calling the incident a misunderstanding, but fans weren't buying it. "A misunderstanding doesn't put a man in the hospital," one fan wrote. The online outrage grew so loud that venues started reconsidering their upcoming bookings with Eazy. Fearing backlash, Remy's family arrived at dawn. Fat Joe, one of her closest industry friends, was seen walking into the hospital with a grim expression. "She's not okay," a source said. This broke her. By sunrise, the world was watching. Every blog, every entertainment site, every Twitter thread was dissecting what happened that night. The punches, the motive, the heartbreak. And while everyone debated who was right or wrong, Remy was sitting silently by Papoose's side, whispering over and over, "I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." Little did she know, the story was far from over. The fight had only opened a door to something much darker, something that would change her life, her career, and her love forever. The next morning, chaos exploded across social media. Every gossip blog, entertainment page, and YouTube channel had Remy Ma and Papoose's names plastered across their front pages. Headlines screamed Eazy, the block captain involved in violent fight, and Remy Ma's husband hospitalized after late-night altercation. Fans couldn't believe it. What started as whispers in the hip-hop world had now turned into a full-blown media storm, and everyone wanted answers. Inside the hospital, Remy sat in a dimly lit waiting room, her phone buzzing nonstop on the chair beside her. Friends, family, producers, everyone wanted to know if Papoose was going to make it. She didn't have the strength to reply. She was numb, replaying the same memory in her head, the last conversation she'd had with him before the event. He'd told her, "Ma, you gotta stop letting people think they can talk about you any kind of way." She brushed it off, saying it was all business, that Eazy didn't mean any harm. But deep down, she knew Papoose had sensed something more. That protective energy he'd always carried had turned into silent frustration over the last few months. He'd been patient, but the tension between them had become too heavy to ignore. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, cameras flashed like lightning. News vans were parked along the curb, reporters shouting questions every time someone walked in or out. Remy's team tried to shield her from the chaos. But word had already spread that Eazy's entourage was being questioned by police. Detectives reportedly wanted to know what led up to the altercation and whether it was premeditated or a spontaneous outburst. Insiders said that Remy had been caught in the middle of a brewing storm for weeks. On one side was Papoose, her husband and longtime supporter. On the other was Eazy, her rising collaborator whose connection with her had become the center of endless speculation. What started as a musical partnership had turned into whispers of an emotional bond, something neither confirmed nor denied. And now, with Papoose lying in critical condition, those rumors carried a new, devastating weight. By midday, Remy finally got to see him. When she stepped into the room, her heart shattered. Papoose lay there with tubes connected to his body, bruises across his face, and a bandage on his forehead. The strong man she knew, the one who never broke under pressure, looked fragile for the first time in his life. She took his hand, whispering, "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have stopped all this before it went too far." Doctors told her he was stable but still under heavy observation. There had been internal injuries that required surgery, and his recovery would take time. When Remy asked if he'd be okay, the doctor paused before saying, "We're hopeful, but right now, it's too soon to tell." Those words crushed her. Outside, Eazy's camp released a short statement denying responsibility. Eazy did not initiate any violence. "We're cooperating fully with authorities," it read. But fans weren't buying it. The internet was already labeling him a villain, with thousands calling for his shows to be canceled and his label to drop him. Hashtags like #CancelEazy and #ProtectRemy and Pap dominated Twitter. Meanwhile, Remy's silence spoke louder than any statement could. She didn't go live, didn't post, didn't respond to the chaos. She was broken. Those close to her said she was battling a whirlwind of guilt. Guilt for not seeing it coming. Guilt for letting things between Eazy and Papoose fester for so long. And guilt for how the world now viewed her. Some fans accused her of playing both sides, while others defended her fiercely, saying she was just a woman trying to balance love, loyalty, and career. By evening, Fat Joe and several members of the terror squad visited the hospital. They tried to comfort her, but Remy couldn't even lift her head. "It's my fault," she kept whispering. "If I hadn't worked with him, none of this would have happened." Fat Joe reminded her that she couldn't blame herself for another man's actions. But deep down, Remy couldn't believe that. The guilt had already taken root. Meanwhile, more details of the fight surfaced. A backstage source revealed that Papoose had tried to approach Eazy calmly at first. He reportedly said, "Man to man, stop talking reckless about my wife." But Eazy, frustrated with all the online speculation about him and Remy, allegedly snapped back with something disrespectful. That's when tempers flared. One security guard claimed it took 5 people to separate them once things turned physical. "It wasn't no small fight," he said. "It was personal. You could feel it in the air." As police continued their investigation, rumors swirled that Eazy might face charges if Papoose's injuries were severe enough. His camp stayed quiet, refusing to confirm anything. But behind the scenes, sources said Eazy was panicking, not just about legal trouble, but about the backlash destroying his reputation overnight. Inside her car, outside the hospital, Remy finally broke down completely. Alone for the first time in hours, she cried into her hands until her voice disappeared. Everything she had worked for felt meaningless now. The love of her life was in a hospital bed because of a feud she never meant to ignite. And worst of all, the internet was dissecting her pain like it was entertainment. Blogs speculated that Remy and Eazy's bond had been deeper than anyone knew, claiming that their chemistry on set had caused tension long before the fight. One outlet even suggested that Papoose had been ready to walk away from the marriage, though close friends denied it, saying he'd always been loyal to the end. Still, the damage was done. The world had its narrative. Remy couldn't stop it. Late that night, when the hospital finally quieted down, she sat beside Papoose again. The room was cold, filled only with the sound of machines and her quiet sobs. "You told me to stay away from drama," she whispered. "You told me to keep my name clean. I didn't listen." Her voice trembled as she brushed her hand across his face. "I just need you to wake up, Pap. I need you to open your eyes." Doctors said he might regain consciousness soon, but they couldn't make promises. Remy stayed by his side through the night, watching him. Waiting for a miracle dot outside the hospital, fans gathered with candles and posters, chanting his name. Videos surfaced online showing hundreds of supporters lighting vigil candles, praying for Papoose's recovery. The love from fans around the world was overwhelming, but for Remy, it was bittersweet. She felt the love, but it came wrapped in pain and regret. By the end of the second day, Remy knew nothing would ever be the same again. Whether Papoose recovered or not, the trust, the peace, and the happiness they once shared had been shattered. The hip-hop world had turned her heartbreak into headlines. And Eazy's silence was only making things worse. Still, as she watched the faint rise and fall of Papoose's chest, Remy made herself a promise no matter what happened next. She was done letting people twist her story. This time, she'd fight for her truth, her husband, and her name. Because deep down, she knew this battle wasn't just about one fight. It was about everything that came after. For the next 48 hours, the world waited. Reporters camped outside the hospital. Fans refreshed their phones every 5 minutes. And Remy Ma sat in a sterile white room holding on to the one hand that had always kept her grounded. Papoose's. The strong, confident woman the public knew had vanished. In her place was someone fragile, someone haunted by guilt and fear. Every beep of the monitor was a reminder that her world could end at any second. Doctors had told her the worst was over, but his condition was still delicate. He hadn't woken up yet, and the waiting was destroying her. She tried to pray, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw that fight replaying in her mind, the flash of fists, the sound of chaos, the look of pain. She couldn't escape it. Outside, the city was boiling. Crowds gathered with posters that read, "Justice for Papoose," and "We stand with Remy." Some fans even blamed the industry itself, saying fame had finally torn apart one of hip-hop's most loyal couples. And while Remy sat in silence, Eazy the block captain's name was being dragged through every corner of the internet. He couldn't go anywhere without cameras flashing, without people yelling coward or traitor. His career, once on the rise, was crumbling overnight. But inside that hospital, Remy wasn't thinking about fame, music, or revenge. She was thinking about the man who had sacrificed everything for her. From the moment she'd met Papoose, he'd been her protector. When she was locked away, he stayed faithful. When the world mocked her, he built her back up. And now he was fighting for his life because he'd tried to defend her name. When the doctors finally told her he was starting to regain consciousness, Remy's heart leaped, but the relief was mixed with fear. What if he woke up angry? What if he blamed her? She couldn't shake the thought that her connection with Eazy had been the spark that lit this fire. Slowly, his eyes opened. The moment she saw them, tears spilled down her cheeks. "Pap, it's me," she whispered, clutching his hand. His voice was weak, almost a whisper. "Ma, what happened?" She could barely answer. She just kept saying, "You're safe. You're okay." The nurse told her to keep the visit short, but she refused to leave. For hours, she sat beside him, watching as he drifted in and out of sleep. When he was strong enough to speak, the first thing he said was, "Promise me you won't ever go back around that man." Those words hit her harder than any punch ever could. She nodded silently, unable to even defend herself. Deep down, she knew he was right. The next morning, the police showed up to take an official statement. They wanted details about what led up to the altercation, who threw the first punch, who escalated it, and whether there was prior conflict. Remy was hesitant. She didn't want to ruin anyone's career, no matter how angry she was, but she also couldn't ignore what had happened. In the end, she told them the truth, that it started with words. Then pride took over, and before anyone could stop it, violence broke out. The authorities later confirmed that they were considering charges of assault against Eazy. depending on the severity of Papoose's injuries. As that news broke, Eazy finally went live on social media. His face was tired, his voice low. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," he said. "I ain't no monster. It just went left real fast." But instead of calming people down, it only made things worse. Comments flooded in, calling him fake, heartless, and disrespectful. Remy didn't respond publicly, but those close to her said she watched the video in silence, tears rolling down her face. "He's not sorry for what he did," she said quietly. "He's sorry he got caught." Days later, Papoose was moved out of ICU and into recovery. The swelling had gone down, the bruises were fading, but his spirit wasn't the same. He was quiet, too quiet. Every time Remy tried to talk about what happened, he changed the subject. "I just need peace," he said. "All that street energy, that pride, that noise, it's not worth it anymore." Remy knew he was right, but it didn't stop the ache inside her. The love between them was still there, but something had changed. The incident had left an invisible crack between them, one built on pain, pride, and the weight of the world, watching their every move. Meanwhile, Eazy's world was collapsing. Sponsors dropped him, shows were canceled, and even some of his closest collaborators began distancing themselves. "He messed with the wrong couple," one insider said. "People loved Papoose and Remy together. You don't touch that." But even with the world turning against Eazy, Remy couldn't find peace. She felt torn between anger and empathy, between the urge to lash out and the need to heal. Late one night, sitting in the hospital chapel, she whispered to herself, "I just want my life back. I want him home." Papoose finally came home a week later. The welcome was emotional. Their daughter ran into his arms. Family filled the living room with tears and laughter. But behind the smiles was a lingering tension neither of them wanted to talk about. When the crowd left and the cameras stopped flashing, Remy sat beside him on the couch. "I thought I lost you," she said quietly. He looked at her, his eyes heavy but gentle. "You almost did." The silence that followed said everything. Over the next few days, Remy stayed off social media completely. She ignored calls from producers, turned down interviews, and focused solely on Papoose. She cooked for him, helped him move around, and kept him company through the sleepless nights. But even in those quiet moments, she could feel his distance. The trust they'd built over decades had been shaken. One night, as rain hit the windows, Papoose finally spoke the words she'd been dreading. "Ma, I love you. You know I do. But I can't keep living in this storm. The music, the headlines, the drama, it's killing us." She tried to respond, but tears choked her words. "We can fix this," she said. "Please, Pap, don't give up on us." He took her hand gently. "I'm not giving up on you. I'm giving up on the noise. We need time. Real time." That night, she lay awake long after he'd fallen asleep. Her heart hurt in a way no audience could see, behind the fame and cameras. She was just a woman watching the man she loved slowly pull away because of choices she never meant to make. The next morning, she posted a simple message on her Instagram story. No pictures, no filters, just words. "Thank you for the prayers. Please respect our healing. Love always wins." It went viral instantly. Fans poured in with messages of support, reminding her that everyone makes mistakes, that she and Papoose were strong enough to survive anything. But Remy knew healing wasn't about public sympathy. It was about forgiveness, rebuilding trust, and learning to let go of the pain that had nearly destroyed them. As the days passed, Papoose grew stronger, physically and emotionally. Their love was still bruised, but not broken. And while Eazy vanished from the spotlight, Remy began writing again. Not songs for the charts, but words from the heart. Words about loyalty, redemption, and the kind of love that fights through fire. Because after everything, the chaos, the guilt, the near loss, she finally understood one thing. No amount of fame or success could ever replace the man who had been there for her when the lights went out. And as she sat beside him that final night, their fingers intertwined, she whispered softly, "We're still here. That's all that matters. If you've made it this far, You already know this story isn't just about fame or music, it's about loyalty, love, and how quickly everything can crumble when pride and pain collide. Remy Ma's tears told the world everything her words couldn't. The woman we've always seen as strong, unshakable, and fearless was suddenly human, broken, begging, and realizing too late how deep the damage had gone. Papoose's recovery is more than a medical fight. It's a battle for trust, redemption, and the survival of a love that's been tested beyond limits. Fans everywhere are holding their breath, waiting to see what happens next. Will Remy finally cut ties with Eazy once and for all? Will Papoose forgive her for everything that led to that night? Or will this tragedy mark the end of one of hip-hop's most powerful couples? The streets, social media, and the industry are all watching closely. And one thing is clear: nothing will ever be the same. If you want to see how this story unfolds, how the truth finally comes to light, and whether love can still survive after betrayal and violence, make sure you don't miss what's coming next. Because what happens after this will change everything forever. Will change everything forever.